I don't feel 100. That's important.
What does it feel like?
You know, well, I do my own gardening, I do my own housework. Anything run by the government is not well done. We've been dealing with problems at long-term care homes long before the pandemic. And nothing has really been done for years. Communication was a lot of the success of the Mississauga derailment. We kept the people well informed. Young girls have got to have confidence in themselves that they can do anything a man can do.
From the Zoomerplex in historic Liberty Village, this is a special presentation of The Zoomer with Libby Znaimer.
Welcome to this special edition of The Zoomer. I'm Libby Znaimer, and I'm delighted to be here with the legendary Hazel McCallion for an intimate one-on-one conversation about her life and her insights as she marks a fabulous milestone, turning 100. Welcome, Hazel.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you here, and I have to point out the obvious. We're doing this in person instead of Zooming, so why did you decide to do it that way?
Well, I think it's more personal, and I think it's the way it should be done.
I think so, too. We have lots to talk about today, but before we dive in, let's tee up the topic.
Hazel McCallion, one of Canada's longest-serving mayors, is turning 100. Lovingly labeled Hurricane Hazel because she's a political tour de force. McCallion was born on Valentine's Day, 1921, in Port Daniel, Quebec. A woman who breaks barriers and stereotypes, she was Canada's oldest active mayor. In 1978, she became mayor of Mississauga, winning 12 consecutive elections, holding the post of mayor for 36 years. Though retired from politics, she's as active as ever, working with businesses and schools and serving her community with pride. 100 has never looked so good. Happy birthday, Hazel.
Happy birthday to you.
So yes, happy birthday to you. What are your thoughts on turning 100?
Well, you know, I look back over the last 100 years, and it's been an exciting life. I've had good health, which is so important, and the many experiences, the people I've met along the way, many of them have been such great assistants, because you don't do it alone. You don't accomplish anything really alone. It's others that can help you. So it's been a wonderful experience.
Now, whenever anyone reaches a great age, in great shape, the obvious question that everybody wants to ask is, what's your secret?
I grew up on a farm in Port Daniel on the Gaspé Coast. I ate good organic food because being on a farm, we had our own vegetables, our own pork, our own beef, our own eggs, chickens, and you name it. And I think if you have a good beginning in life with good food, healthy food, you know, I never knew what a hamburger was till I went to Quebec City to take my final year in high school. So I ate a lot of fish because my dad was in the fish processing business. So we had fish right out of the water into the frying pan. I drank a lot of milk, unpasteurized, by the way. So I think that's very important to your health through the years.
Do you think genetics has anything to do with it?
Well, yes, I think it has something to do with it. But I still believe that lots of good exercise and good food makes all the difference in the world.
You were just talking about growing up on the farm. You had very modest beginnings.
Oh, yes.
How did that play into what you became?
Well, being born in 1921, I went through a depression. I only had 2 toys as a kid, a doll and a plush bunny, rabbit, or second-hand clothes. So I came up the hard way, and I think it teaches you to appreciate what you're able to accomplish. You know, I used to look at the Eaton's catalog that used to come into the house and think of all the wonderful things that other kids had I didn't have, but it didn't bother me. I just felt that my mom and dad brought me up the right way. They looked after me. My mother was a nurse. She graduated from the Montreal General Hospital in 1901. I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I was the baby, a little bit spoiled, by the way. So when you have a happy family life, as well as good food, lots of good exercise, you know, there wasn't even a skating rink in my town when I was young. I used to skate on ponds that froze in the farmers' fields, etc., or on the Bay of Chaleur, the ocean. So, you know, you come up appreciating things because of what you didn't have. I think of the kids today, that they got more toys, they don't know which one to play with.
You just mentioned skating. Is that where you learned to play hockey? Because you've broken many barriers, but you were even a professional hockey player.
Yeah. Well, my brother worked in Montreal, and then he came home to set up a business in our hometown, and he brought me a pair of skates. I was only 5 at the time. So he took me out on, as I say, one of the fields of our farm and taught me how to skate. My 2 sisters skated and played hockey. So we had a league on the Gaspé Coast. We traveled from community to community. And then when I graduated from Quebec High School and went to Montreal, I heard about a league in Montreal of female hockey. So I decided maybe I should try to see if they would accept me. I had a tryout, they accepted me. So that's how I played professional hockey in Montreal in the league, paid $5 a game.
Back then, thinking back, do you remember what kind of ambitions did you have for yourself at that point?
Well, I think when you know that you can't be helped by your family because they're not able to help you, you make up your mind you're going to do it on your own. And that was my ambition. I said, I got to do it on my own. I couldn't go to university or college, but I was determined that with the education I had, and with looking to others to help you along the way, that you could make it. So I was determined I was going to make it.
Speaking of your education, you couldn't go to university because you couldn't afford it. You went to secretarial school.
My mom and dad couldn't afford to send me. They sent my older brother and my older sister to university, but they couldn't afford to send me because of the Depression. So I went to grade 9 in my hometown, and then I had to go away for grade 10 and 11. And my sister took me away because she was a school teacher for grade 10 in St. John's, Quebec, just outside of Montreal. And then my 2 sisters, Linda and Gwen, put me through school at Quebec High School. And that's where I graduated from. My dad was hoping, he knew I was going to Notre Dame Secretarial School, and he hoped that when I graduated, I would come home and help him with his business. But instead, I decided to work in Montreal, and my second job was with Canadian Kellogg, engineers and contractors in the petrochemical field. So I was secretary to the boss. Well, the company was awarded the contract to build the world's first synthetic rubber plant at Sarnia. And they insisted that we had to have an office in Toronto. So he said to me, would you come with me to Toronto to set up an office? So that's how I got up to Ontario. So I came to Toronto, helped him set up the office. We built the synthetic rubber plant during the war. And then the company left me in charge of the company because there were no more contracts during the war. And then they gave me a choice of going back to Montreal or staying in Toronto. I chose Toronto. And because the reason I chose Toronto, I joined St. Michael All Angels Church, Anglican Church on St. Clair, and got involved in the young people's.
I lived down the street from that church.
Well, that's where I began my career. That attracted me. So the company transferred the head office from Montreal to Toronto, so I could carry on to represent the company until after the war, till we got back into the business of building oil refineries and chemical plants.
Hazel, you broke many, many barriers in your long career, and we'll be back with more on that after this short break.
In 1978, when I ran for mayor of Mississauga, it was the women that made a major contribution to getting me elected mayor.
Welcome back to this special episode of theZoomer with Hazel McCallion. And by the time you left politics, after 36 years, you were the most successful retail politician in the country, presiding over Canada's fourth largest city. But it started in Streetsville. What made you decide to do that?
Yes, I retired from Canadian Kellogg, and I got involved to assist my husband with the printing business. He had a printing business in Streetsville. I got involved with the Streetsville and District Chamber of Commerce. And then the mayor of Streetsville invited me to join the Streetsville Planning Board in 1965. And so I did. I became chairman of the board. And then I was encouraged to run for office, which was quite an undertaking because there were no women on the Streetsville Council. The first year I ran, I didn't make it. But I went back the second year and was elected deputy reeve of Streetsville, then appointed reeve, and then ran for mayor of Streetsville in 1970 and was mayor till 73 until regional government came along, eliminated Streetsville, and put it to Port Credit in Streetsville and put us into the city of Mississauga.
What was it like running at a time when women were not encouraged to be in politics? Who mentored you in that way? And
you know, when I ran for mayor of Streetsville, the women worked hard against me because they couldn't understand how a woman wanted to get involved in a man's world because all the members of council were men. It's interesting the difference, and I use this. In 1978, when I ran for mayor of Mississauga, it was the women that made a major contribution to getting me elected mayor. So there's 1968 to 1978, the difference.
And is it just the times, you think, or what?
They noticed that when I was councillor on the city council, of the work I did and the work I did in the community. I think the women recognized it. And as I say, many women worked for me when their husbands were working against me. So there was quite a change.
A few months after you were elected mayor of Mississauga, we had that big, horrible train derailment. Yep. Tell me about that.
Well, you know, there is a perfect example of the staff of the city, the provincial government. Roy McMurtry came out, and the police chief. You know, when that situation occurred at 2 minutes to 11, November the 10th, 1979, when the police told the people they had to leave their homes, they did it. We were able to evacuate 230,000 people. The people really listened. I wish today more people would listen to the pandemic problem that we have. But the people of Mississauga listened, and they left their homes. And as a result, it became a Mississauga miracle because nobody lost their lives, even though chlorine was a very deadly item to be in the community.
What was it like being plunged into that?
Well, it was a challenge, but you know, I had good support from so many people and support of the entire community. People left their homes that night in their night clothes without their medications, etc. And we were able to get drugstores opened up to provide them with their medication. It was so well managed. And secondly, we communicated. Communication was a lot of the success of the Mississauga derailment. We kept the people well informed. We told them how serious it was, but we didn't exaggerate, and we didn't. And in fact, we monitored the press to make sure that the information got out to the people correctly.
You say it was well managed, but you managed it well.
Well, no. I and a large group of people, the fire chief, the police chief, the staff of the city, it was a team approach. I wish the Maple Leafs would adopt the same approach. Team approach.
It also really put you on the map politically.
Well, I think it did, yes, because we had people come from all over the world to find out how we were able to manage and evacuate 250,000 people.
Okay, we will have more with Hazel McCallion after the break.
Long-term care homes have been a problem for years, long before the pandemic.
Welcome back to this special episode of theZoomer with Hazel McCallion. Now, after you left politics, you took a job as Rivera Senior Living's Chief Elder Officer. Of course, we're in the midst of a terrible pandemic, and the worst of it has been in long-term care. Canada has a terrible record overall. 80% of deaths in the first wave were in long-term care, and that is the worst record of any Western country. Your company, Rivera Homes, has seen some of the largest outbreaks and the most deaths in the country. How do you feel about those things?
Long-term care homes have never been designed for a pandemic. You know, we had the SARS episode, and I have a book that was, a committee was set up after SARS to look at, to prepare for the next pandemic. It's about that thick. I'm not sure much was done with the recommendations, and the long-term care homes are not designed to be able to separate those that are infected with the virus. And so I'm hoping that the committee that Doug Ford has set up to look at long-term care homes will realize that you have to design the building to accommodate a pandemic.
Well, that's true, and they are planning homes without units or rooms with multiple residents. But there was a whole summer to prepare.
Yeah.
And staffing is a huge issue. And they prepped in Quebec. They put in new training courses, and they paid people to take the training courses. And there have been umpteen reports saying that part of the problem is that these workers are not paid properly. They don't have good working conditions. And I mean, do you think the province did what they should have done to prepare for the second wave?
we've been dealing with problems at long-term care homes long before the pandemic. And nothing has really been done for years. It's the inspection and the action of the provincial ministry that deals with long-term care homes. They've separated it now. Before it was dealt by the Minister of Health. Has been neglected for years. The problems that existed were just overlooked. I hope that the pandemic will bring about an outcome that will deal with the problems.
But again, it hit, there was a first wave, we knew the second one is coming. Do you think that the province prepared properly knowing that?
The homes for profit should not wait for the province to do it. And even where the municipality runs the homes should not wait for a pandemic to realize that they are not properly inspected and action taken. So there's a lot of responsibility, not just on government, but on the homes that are owned by different people and different organizations. We should never only depend on government to control things. It's up to the private enterprise. It's up to people to control things. You don't leave it up to government alone to do it.
Well, the record shows that the for-profit homes have a much worse record during the pandemic, and a lot of people are saying it's because they are responsible to make profit and to give money to shareholders, and they think the whole thing should be run by the government.
Well, anything run by the government is not well done. Sorry. Look at the payroll in the federal government. The government is responsible to inspect and to check to make sure things are done well. That's where they've neglected to do in long-term care homes. You know, it's interesting. We're shortage of hospital beds. That has been an issue for years, that we are short of hospital beds. In other words, as the population grows, there should be a relationship between the number of hospital beds that are available. That has never been done by any government. Think about it.
Oh, absolutely.
I worked hard to get a second hospital built in Mississauga because I knew the Mississauga Hospital was not able to cope with the growth that we were having in the city. So I went to work with a group of people to build a second hospital, and thank God that second hospital is there. You can't have growth in a community without looking at, is there hospital capacity to look after the people?
Back to long-term care, do you think that the whole situation there just reflects ageism and the fact that society doesn't necessarily think that older people are valuable?
I would not want to say that they don't care, but obviously the management, the control of long-term care homes by the province for years has not been adequate. For years. It's nothing new. The pandemic has just emphasizing the need and indicating what neglect has occurred over many, many years.
Okay, we'll be back with more with Hazel McCallion after the break.
The present Premier, I think, is doing an excellent job. Doug Ford, I think he's been faced with a major challenge.
Welcome back to this special episode of The Zoomer with Hazel McCallion. And by my count, you went through 6 prime ministers and 7 Ontario premiers. So who was the most memorable?
Chrétien was a great friend. He always talked of me as the little gal from the Gaspé Coast. That was he always addressed. And then the other is Bill Davis, Premier-wise, and of course the present Premier, I think, is doing an excellent job. Doug Ford, I think he's been faced with a major challenge, and so has Justin Trudeau. I mean, the politicians are trying their best to face something that we have never faced before, this pandemic. It's the most serious situation that has occurred. So I say, I support them.
You have been a Liberal, but you supported Doug Ford. You endorsed him after you left office, even though he's definitely not a Liberal.
No, my husband determined my political affiliation in this way, that I was basically conservative with a liberal point of view and a great social conscience and looking for a lot of reform in government. I believe it is important that you support the person. It's not necessarily the party. I think if you support the person, it is far more important.
How do you think they're handling the pandemic?
I think they're all trying their best.
Is it good enough?
The vaccination should be widespread. I think that's a real problem. But no matter what the politicians do, and no matter what the medical profession does, the only people that can get rid of the virus are the people of Canada.
You mentioned the success of your communications during the derailment, and we have briefings up the wazoo from all levels of government, but do you think that they are communicating clearly enough?
No. I am very disappointed that I have never, and I'm sure you have never, received a printed document in your home telling you what to do. They have depended completely on TV coverage. And I think people are out working. They're not sitting to watch the politicians on TV. They're out working. They're in the hospitals. They're in the businesses. And they depend completely on the communication. During an election, we're snowed with literature. The pandemic, have you received anything?
Well, there's a lot online.
Yeah, I know. You have to realize that not everybody goes online. Technology is wonderful, and it's doing a fantastic job. But it's still people that do not recognize technology. And I think a piece of literature that would be placed in every home, as they do during an election. They don't depend on TV during an election. Every party makes sure that our homes are flooded with data.
Well, they also they are relying more and more on social media and less on places like radio.
Some people don't use social media or Twitter or anything. You got to make sure you cover the whole gamut of communication. That has not been done.
I noticed in your commemorative book, there are some pictures of you with Bill and Hillary Clinton. What other presidents do you have comments on?
No, I never had the opportunity to meet Obama, which I think I would have liked to have done. Biden, the new president, and of course, the vice president, first woman to ever be in that position. I loved her statement when she said, "I'm the first woman to hold this position, but not the last." I thought that was a real message to the young girls of the United States to say, it's possible for you to attain a high position.
Do you think that democracy is in danger in the States?
Democracy in the United States is in danger because of their Constitution. I think they should look at their Constitution. To allow a defeated president to carry on for months after the person is defeated and has the authority to do anything, full authority of the President of the United States, is unacceptable. I think our Canadian system is far superior to the United States Constitution, far superior.
You're not
when
happy?
Our Prime Minister is defeated, they're defeated. They have no more. I'm so proud to be a Canadian. I think our system is far better than the system in the United States. And I think the Americans will realize that.
Beyond the system, there's also this fragmentation because of social media. You have millions and millions and millions of people who believe that the election was stolen, who believe this, to me, insanity of a cabal of pedophiles running the country.
I think that democracy took a terrible beating in the United States. And Joe Biden has a major challenge to get democracy back in the forefront of the operation of the United States.
There's more after the break. Stay tuned.
I said, don't make donations. Here I am. Judge me on what I've been able to accomplish. Send your contribution to charity.
Welcome back to this special episode of theZoomer with Hazel McCallion. Now, you presided over a period of huge change in the GTA, especially when it comes to diversity and different populations. How did you manage that?
Well, early in my term as mayor of Mississauga, I called together a group of a member of the Portuguese community, the Croatian community, and the Indian community, and said, Toronto wanted us to join the Caribbean Festival, include Mississauga. I said, no, we're going to have a festival of our own. And that was the beginning, it's 35 years old now, of Carassauga. And we brought together the representatives of India and Pakistan and Poland, Ukraine, etc. Now it's grown into a festival after 35 years, representing some 40 countries. And that, to me, I think it has made a major contribution to bringing together the people from around the world, getting them working together, getting them to understand one another's culture, communicating with one another, etc. And it has been a major contribution to the success of the city of Mississauga.
Now, I covered a number of your elections. Maybe coronations would be a better word. And I have to say, it was always a really lousy assignment. It would be over 2 minutes after the polls closed, and that would be that. No nonsense. How did you, people really loved you. How did that?
Well, you know, you have to appreciate people. I love to be with people, and you have to make a contribution. You know, I worked hard with the people of Streetsville, became president of the Streetsville and District Chamber of Commerce. I organized trade sessions. My husband and I started a paper called the Streetsville Booster. You have to become a part of the community. And if you become part of the community and people see that you want to contribute, you want to build a community, you want to get people working together, there's so many opportunities for people to contribute.
A couple of famous things about you. So you would never accept campaign donations. You told people, just give the money to charity?
Well, no. In the first campaign as mayor of Mississauga, I accepted donations. But after I was reelected about 3 or 4 times, I said, don't make donations. Here I am. Judge me on what I've been able to accomplish. Send your contribution to charity.
You know, you were the longest serving mayor in Ontario. I think that you have been surpassed by a guy named Krantz in Milton.
Well, Krantz now has become the longest serving mayor of a town in Canada. I became the longest serving mayor, 36 years as mayor of a city, but I was also 3 years mayor of Streetsville. So I served for 39 years as a mayor. He's still in office, so he could exceed all those years. But I'm very proud of what I've been able to accomplish.
And people are proud of you. There's also another very famous incident involving you, and that is a police standoff involving a distraught man threatening to kill himself, and it ended after 5 hours when you appeared on the scene and basically said, the police have other things to attend to.
No. That morning, I had a meeting in Toronto, but my staff phoned me and said, the police is trying to get a gentleman down off the roof in Port Credit. I said, oh, well, I hope they'll be successful. I went to the meeting in Toronto. When I came back at 1 o'clock, I think it was, I was told he was still on the roof. So I decided to go down to Port Credit. So I stood outside of what they cordoned off, and I waved to him. I said, here's the Mayor Hazel. He had a rope around his neck. He was on the roof of his house. They then realized that maybe I could have some influence. So I went in and I said, if you come down, I'll look after you. You won't get into any trouble. So he came down, and we put him in, the police put him in the car and took him to the hospital to be checked up. He was a guy that collected, he went out every day at garbage day, and picked up things and took it home. We had all kinds of charges against him as a city for the lack of property management. I was able to get him to sell his house and take the money and pay off the debt to the city. And then he bought a place somewhere in the country. So I got him back on his feet, and he disappeared.
You were talking about working with your husband. You lost your husband in 1997 after he had Alzheimer's, so presumably you were his caregiver for a while. And it's a situation that many, many, many women find themselves in as a widow. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, of course, I have 3 wonderful children, Peter, Paul, and Linda, my daughter. And you just have to carry on. I was mayor at the time, and I knew that Sam would want me to carry on. It was a great loss, and but he never, he had Alzheimer's, but he remembered the family. He never lost that contact. So I said, I have to carry on. Simple as that. And so I did. And with the help of my family, I've been able to cope with it.
Okay, we'll be back with some final thoughts from Hazel McCallion after the break. Welcome back to this special edition of theZoomer with Hazel McCallion. And Hazel, some final thoughts?
Well, no, I don't think, I don't feel 100. That's important.
What does it feel like?
Well, I can still shovel my walkway to the house, and I go out in the yard and exercise every day. I do my own gardening, I do my own housework. vacuuming, etc. You got to stay active. You can't sit around doing nothing.
Normally, I would think that you'd have a great big party for this, but we're in the middle of COVID, and you're marking it with this commemorative book that will also be a fundraiser for Mississauga Hospital. Why did that project appeal to you?
Well, I've been approached by other organizations to use my 100th birthday to raise money for their worthy cause. But Trillium approached me, and in my opinion, hospital care is so important. We hope to raise $1 million with the book, and we've raised just over $2.5 million on the book to rebuild the Mississauga Hospital. Hospital care, and during this pandemic, it clearly indicates that we haven't paid attention in Ontario and other parts of Canada for more hospital accommodation.
Finally, what's your message to people, especially women, looking at your career and coming up from very modest beginnings to what you've managed to achieve?
Well, women have got to be independent and show their independence. Young girls have got to have confidence in themselves, that they can do anything a man can do. And that demonstrates to those around them that they are confident and they have the ability to do whatever job they're given to do. So that is very important.
Anything else you want to leave us with?
You know, you look back over 100 years, life on Earth is like the blink of an eye. But what you do, what you accomplish on Earth, I think lasts forever.
Hazel McCallion, thank you so much.
Just great to be with Zoomer.
Okay, yes. I hope you enjoyed those anecdotes and that wisdom shedding light on a long and passionate life. Thanks to Hazel McCallion and to the audience at home. For now, it's time to zoom out.